Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Graham Sibbald Podcast. My name is Jorja and I'm your host. Today we're going to be speaking about stock condition surveys and let you know everything that you need to know about them. We'll be speaking to Neil MacFarlane to provide insight into what a stock condition survey really is, when they're needed and what information is captured and collated when one takes place. So, with no further ado, welcome to the Graham Sibbald Podcast and enjoy this week's episode. Welcome to the Graham Sibbald Podcast. We are here today with Neil MacFarlane, who is a building surveyor and partner at Graham Sibbald, based within the firm's Glasgow office. Good afternoon, Neil.
Hi, Jorja. Afternoon.
How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Good, thanks for coming on the show today. So I think a good place to start is if you could tell us a little bit about your role within Graham Sibbald.
Sure, yeah, I've been at Graham Sibbald since 1999, so now in my 21st year. I'm a partner in the building surveying department based in the Glasgow office. I principally oversee the Glasgow West building surveying team and assist in overseeing of the BS and architectural teams across our other offices offering building surveying, which as well as Glasgow are the Edinburgh, Dundee, Aberdeen, Inverness and Manchester offices. Overall, as a team, we number 29, made up of building surveyors, architects and project managers. We offer the full range of building surveying and architectural services from statutory consents, contract administration, project management and project monitoring, as well as professional work such as acquisition surveys, dilapidations, schedules of condition, and of course today's topic, stock condition surveys.
Brilliant, thank you, Neil. So could you tell us exactly what a stock condition survey is and who would require a stock condition survey?
Okay, so the term stock basically refers to an organisation's list of assets, which in fact are really dwellings of various types, and of course dwellings really are people's homes. So stock condition surveys are required by local authorities and local councils and registered social landlords, so effectively for all social housing stock. A stock condition survey is a survey of the main structure, the main fabric components externally and fabric components internally, along with the mechanical, electrical, water and drainage systems within the properties. In addition, we review potential risks and hazards to health and safety from any deficiencies identified in a dwelling, there being 29 categories of housing hazards to look out for. The stock survey process normally entails a large volume of surveys across a large number of the social housing providers' housing stock. The information gathered from the stock surveys is then collated into a master document, which is used to identify failures in the standards, as well as estimating where deterioration may occur and where homes may become non-decent. Informed decisions can then be taken to establish targeted investment into the housing stock. Budgets can then be finalised, and normally after the strategy for investment has been prepared, the social housing provider will undertake implementation of repair works to remedy component failures and components that may be nearing the end of their useful life cycle. This normally means that, in effect, people's homes will receive investment and improvements, which a lot of the time will result in the likes of new boilers, new kitchens and or bathrooms, and replacement windows and doors, for example.
That's really interesting. So if you're going to go and get a stock condition survey, what are the main legislative requirements?
Okay, principally the government set out a target to improve social housing conditions around the year 2000. Many improvements have been made, however there is still ongoing investment required going forward. The Decent Home Standard is a technical standard for public housing introduced by the United Kingdom Government, and this underpinned the Decent Homes programme brought in by the Labour Party under Tony Blair, which aimed to provide a minimum standard of housing conditions for all those who are housed in the public sector, for example, council housing and housing associations. The government set out a target in 2000 that it would ensure that all social housing meets set standards of decency by 2010, by reducing the number of households living in social housing that do not meet the standards by a third between 2001 and 2004, with most of the improvement taking place in the most deprived local authority areas. Local authorities were then required to set out a timetable under which they assess, modify, and where necessary replace their housing stock according to the conditions laid out in the standard. In England, the Decent Home Standard was introduced in June 2004 to promote measurable improvements to housing. The Decent Homes Standard arose from the UK Government's Housing Green Paper, Quality and Choice, A Decent Home for All, and the standard was first published in England in April 2002. So 20 years on, there's a continued need to address failing dwellings and improve social housing stock and standards. The main current legislation in England is now set in A Decent Home, Definition and Guidance for Implementation, and that's June 2006, which is the Department for Communities and Local Government document. This 2006 update was to take account of the Housing Act 2004 and included the implementation of the Housing Health and Safety Rating System. In Scotland, the Scottish Government produced a paper which is the Scottish Housing Quality Standard. The paper is SHQS Technical Standards for Social Landlords and is linked to the Energy Efficiency Standard for Social Housing. The Energy Efficiency Standard for Social Housing aims to encourage landlords to improve the energy efficiency of social housing in Scotland. This supports the Scottish Government's vision of warm, high quality, affordable, low carbon homes in the housing sector that helps to establish a successful low carbon economy across Scotland. The EIS sets a single minimum energy efficiency rating for landlords to achieve that varies dependent on the dwelling type and the fuel type that is used to heat it. Wales have their own specific legislation, which is known as the Welsh Housing Quality Standards. So in summary, the main criteria for social housing is fourfold. 1, it meets the current statutory minimum standard for housing. 2, it is in reasonable state of repair. 3, it has a reasonably modern facilities and services. And 4, it provides a reasonable degree of thermal comfort.
Amazing. So there's definitely lots going on there. So maybe to get a little bit more into the specifics, if you're actually getting a survey carried out, what exactly does a survey entail and what parameters are used for establishing component replacements, for example?
Okay, there are two main aims of the stock condition survey, which are to assess the age and condition of the major elements of the asset, allowing us to estimate the renewal year for each item, as well as for the survey to establish the overall general condition of the stock and forecast costs for future replacement works. Surveys are undertaken on various house types, but in the main are for houses, flats and block surveys. Houses are anything from detached to semi-detached or terraces. Flats are generally any type of flat, maisonettes, even single rooms within both low-rise blocks and high-rise blocks. The block surveys are undertaken on the main shared structure and fabric of the blocks and common areas of flats. Each survey takes on average around 30 minutes to complete, and the surveyor normally completes a report template on site to ensure all components are inspected and the required data is captured. The surveyor will have completed some desktop research before attending for the survey to determine the age of the property, and this will form the benchmark for surveying the structure, fabric externally, and internal components, and taking notes on previously replaced components. There is a standard component life cycle table which sets out when components require replacement. So, for example, roofs have life cycle of 50 years for houses, 30 years for flats. Windows are 40 years, kitchens are 20 years, bathrooms are 30 years, and boilers are 15 years. So analysing further the four main criteria for social housing, number one is, does the dwelling meet the current statutory minimum standards for housing? So dwellings which fail to meet this criteria are those containing one or more hazards assessed as category 1 or serious under the Housing Health and Safety Rating System. So for example, this could be overcrowding, dampness, electrical hazards, excess cold, or fire safety issues. Number 2 is the dwelling in a reasonable state of repair? Dwellings which fail to meet this criterion are those where either one or more of the key building components are old and because of their condition need replacing or major repair, or 2 or more of the building components are old because of their condition need replacing or major repair. Number 3 is, does the dwelling have reasonably modern facilities and services? Dwellings which fail to meet this criterion are those which lack 3 or more of the following: a reasonably modern kitchen, which is defined as 20 years old or less, a kitchen with adequate space and layout, a reasonably modern bathroom, which is defined as 30 years old or less, an appropriately located bathroom and WC, adequate insulation against external noise, and adequate size and layout of common areas for blocks. Number 4 is, does the dwelling give a reasonable degree of thermal comfort? And this criterion requires dwellings to have both effective insulation and heating.
Great, thank you. So obviously coronavirus has put a lot of pressure on different businesses and also how surveyors carry out their job. Has this been affected Graham Sibbald, and how many stock condition surveys have Graham Sibbald undertaken recently?
Yeah, in the last year we've undertaken around 2,500 surveys across Scotland and various areas in England, these being London, South East and South Coast of England. In previous years we'd previously undertaken many thousands across both northern Scotland and the northwest of England, predominantly around Liverpool and the Chester areas. We're currently on site doing some stock condition surveys even in COVID times, and clearly all necessary PPE precautions are being taken. So after completing the stock condition services don't really stop there. We also have undertaken contract administration of the implementation programmes, replacing many hundreds of kitchens, bathrooms, boilers, and windows and doors across Scotland and North West England. Several of those contracts amounting to millions of pounds of investment in improving people's homes.
Great, thank you so much, Neil. I think we can all say we're now experts on stock condition surveys. So thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Neil, for your time today. I'm sure we can agree that this subject will definitely get people thinking about the overall condition of their homes. For anyone that would like to get more information, please go to www.g-s.co.uk. Thank you for listening, stay safe, and we look forward to the next episode of the Graham Sibbald Podcast.